wife and I were in Berlin together a couple of years ago, and I was asked to speak to the Berlin Bar Association, a group of 1,000 German lawyers. There may have been a half a dozen Jewish lawyers among them. And I asked a single question. I said, how many of you are victims of the Holocaust? And 2 or 3 people raised their hand, and I shook my head. And I said, how many of you have had members of your family die of cancer or heart disease or diabetes or other dreaded illnesses? Every hand in the audience went up. And I said, how can you be confident that the cures for those diseases did not go up in smoke at Auschwitz and Majdanek and Treblinka? And everybody came over to me afterward and said, we are now survivors. And the opposite of that is everyone who was saved has saved so many other people. So I think there are many things that we can learn from the incredible bravery of the Bielski brothers and of all the people who risked their lives in the woods to save the lives of others. We can learn that saving the life of one person is saving the life of so many people. We can learn that failing to act to save the life of one person is the equivalent of taking the life not only of one person, but of so many other people. We can learn that courage is not something that you're necessarily born with. To quote the bard Shakespeare in Twelfth Night, when he talked about greatness, he said some people are born with greatness, others have greatness thrust upon them, others come to greatness. The same thing is true of courage. If you think about how the world would have been had Winston Churchill been listened to in the 1930s, and had Britain and France engaged in preventive war and destroyed the Nazi war machinery in 1935, 1936, before they became the most powerful military force in Europe. And we have to think of that as we think of Iran today and in the future, how important preventive war can be in saving millions and millions of lives. But if Churchill had been listened to and Chamberlain had been ignored, as he should have been, and our history has relegated him into the dustbin of history, we would never have heard of the Bielski brothers, and they would be here today saying, thank you for never having heard of us. We would much prefer to have lived our lives as obscure people working in our father's mill. They had courage and heroism thrust upon them unwillingly, involuntarily. They rose to the moment. They saw an opportunity. They had no alternative, ein breira, no choice. And they acted knowing that they had no choice. And so I think there are so many lessons that we have. Look, for young people here tonight, for people even my age here tonight, we're so lucky. We haven't had heroism thrust upon us. We've lived in good times. Israelis have had heroism thrust upon them, 67, 73, many other times. I worked closely with Erwin Cutler on Soviet jewelry, and we met real heroes. When we went to the Soviet Union in 1974, 1975, 78, 79, I was there repeatedly. Erwin actually got arrested in Moscow and was threatened with incarceration. But even Erwin was not a hero compared to the Idunudels, the Sharanskys, the Butmans, the Kuznetsovs, the Dimshits, the people who confronted the Soviet iron fist and risked their lives, some whose names we don't know because they died in the Gulag. These were people of great courage. Our hope, our prayer, is that none of you will ever have to show the kind of courage that the Bielskis showed. That's the prayer, that's the hope, that's the opposite of the Baruch Matir Asurim. But we don't know that. And there are young people here today who are bar mitzvah age, or just a little older than mitzvah age. As Yogi Berra once put it, making predictions is very difficult, especially about the future. And none of us knows what the future holds. And none of us knows whether you will be called on, young people, to show heroism. Even today, young people are called on to show heroism. Let me tell you, you go to university today as an 18-year-old young man or woman, and you strongly support Israel and Israel's right to defend itself, you have to show heroism on that campus. You have to stand up. You have to stand up to your bigoted professors who have the power to give you grades. Let me tell you what one of my students did to show heroism. We have a bigot in the face of bigotry in the United States of America today. Imagine if you're a European student confronting the bigotry of Oxford or Cambridge University or the University of Paris or the Sorbonne. There you really have to show courage. When I spoke in Canada recently, I know there are people here from Toronto, you may remember this. I had to have armed people, police on the stage, and they had to give me a bulletproof vest to speak about Israel on a university campus. My life has been repeatedly threatened. I don't have courage. I don't need courage. I can speak. I'm not worried. But today, to speak about Israel and make the case for Israel on many university campuses, you need to have courage. So that's what we can learn from Bielski. These are eternal messages. We hear about a man for all seasons. This is a lesson for all seasons. Nobody is immune. Nobody is exempt.
I think my son Alan knows better English than I do. So let him be my keeper.
My father knows perfect English, but when Mitch and I told him he was going to speak, he told me, "No, Alan, you're going to speak." And as usual, I said, "Yes, sir." Sometimes I call him sir, sometimes admiral, but I always say, "Yes, sir." It's a special privilege and honor for me to be standing at my father's side and witness him receiving this special recognition. He graciously accepts these accolades as the last surviving Bielski sibling, and with esteemed respect to his late parents, brothers, and sisters, he acknowledges the iconic Bielski partisan narrative and its unique historical marker as an exemplar of defiance and resistance. It's sadly ironic that my beloved grandparents, David and Bella Bielski, parents to the brothers Tuvia, Zeus, Asael, Aaron, Walter, Nathan, Joshua, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and sisters Kaiba and Estelle were not able to be among the 1,200 Jews saved by my uncles. I was heartened to recently visit and say Kaddish at my grandparents' grave with my father and cousin David Bielski Hirschstone. It's a memorial and mass grave site in which they and 18,000 fellow Jews from the Novogradic area in today's Belarus were martyred. May the memories never be forgotten and inspire future generations to resist oppression. God bless them, Israel, and the United States of America. Thank you.